Hello everybody and welcome back to Space Engineers, where today we're going to be looking more into the glorious engines that I have been spending way too much time on designing. As you may know, I haven't uploaded a lot of videos recently, and that's because I've been working on a couple of different ones, one of them being all of this engine-based stuff. I've been doing some research on how engines actually work and how I can implement it into this game. Right down to the fundamentals of how do you even make a crankshaft which works, how do you make the piston rods, how do you make the piston heads, how do you make the housing for all that stuff. It's not finalised, so don't take this as a tutorial on how to actually build an engine, because I haven't got one fully working. I'm just trying to get the whole concept in before I actually make one which is powered by some other means other than, the rotor. But we're making progress, so hopefully soon enough we'll actually have a working engine powered by some kind of external force. So yeah, without further ado, let's get on with today's video. Okay, so for the first stage is you have to make a crankshaft. And for those who don't know, a crankshaft is basically the timing rod inside your engine, which states which piston should be up, which piston should be down, and which order all the pistons move in. So obviously that's quite an important stage. And I've been talking with a couple of people. One guy sort of has designed or talked about a couple of different blueprints. Sort of concepts, and I had a look at that. I've had another guy who's sort of had a similar idea but slightly different, and I took both of their concepts and basically made my own because I like unique stuff. And this is a crankshaft I made. So as you can see, it's basically some wheels. So you can see the center line which the whole crankshaft moves through, and you've basically got three positions which are all offset diagonally from each other. And then above I basically estimated how big each piston-based housing would be. So we have a 5x5, or technically it's a 7x7 block, but the interior space is a 5x5, and then on each one we have a shared wall. So this piston housing and this piston housing have this as a shared wall, which makes sense. And as you can see, this would be technically a 4-piston engine for a crankshaft which is that big. So then I spent some time next up here designing how a housing would actually work. So I had to think of two main things. First of all, I had to think of something that would not allow you to build on the interior, so blast doors are quite a nice choice. And the other thing is I wanted to make it so, the pistons can actually seamlessly slide through. And the advantage of a blast door is, as you can see, they're thinner than a regular block. As you can see right there. Yeah, they're a little bit thinner. So that means if I made some kind of structure in the middle, it would have space. So I was thinking, obviously, you could do something like this, but it gives you a bit of a gap. So I was trying to experiment with different kinds of piston heads, of which I didn't get very far. We had some concepts and they sort of worked, but they also basically didn't, so sad times. I tried to use wheels. So the whole idea about this is wheels allow you to seamlessly just, roll along the interior wall. If you have a wall which, you can just have wheels on, you mean you've got basically zero friction, because roads in this game have no friction, so. If I could have made that work, we could have had wheels in these, 8 corners, or technically 8 wheels, so one there, one there, one there, one there, one there, one there, and one there. And that would mean, the whole thing would be supported, and it would just seamlessly slide up and down. Of course, that does not work, because one rotors don't work like that, it just doesn't work how you want it to. And these suspension blocks in this game are absolutely flipping huge. So yeah, I had to try other means instead. I may come back to this in future, in a future video, talking... I might make this whole thing bigger, right? So I might make a piston head like this, which actually works, and then I might set the scale based off what the piston head is. We'll see. But for now, I moved on to a different concept. So I had the fundamentals of how a 4-cylinder type engine worked, right? The timings were alright, but it was quite big for only having 4 pistons. So then I started kind of considering, what if we put a V8 in this game? What if I go from a 4-stroke or whatever you call this type of engine to a V8? So that's where this came from. And this was where I actually changed the whole size of the crankshaft a bit. So these use small wheels, and yeah, as you can see, we have 8 cylinders in, and it's smaller than that, right? So we have 8 cylinders in a smaller space, and this does work, believe it or not. So if I set this RPM to, let's say, 10, this was where I was like, this could actually work. Now, I didn't build this quite how a V8 technically works, but I don't know why I chose this way, and I should have changed it, but I didn't, and these take quite a while to build because you have to manually place each of these rods in a bit. A V8 technically works where these 2 pistons are both at the same height, and then these 2 are at the opposite height, like 180 degrees offset. A little bit like this, but sort of not. So essentially, when these rods are fully extended, so are these, and these 2 would be fully retracted. But for some reason I decided to make it offset. Why? I don't know. But that's something I did. But yeah, so we designed this, and I was like, why would I make a traditional type V8, right? So I already didn't basically do it, because I built it like this and did it slightly wrong. I also found out that, 4 blocks is even worse than 5. But, making anything work. So, we got the fundamentals working. This, if you didn't know, these are how I make these pistons, right? So, it uses the columns blocks going through and attach, or basically just goes through this gap, which are surrounded by blast doors, so they'll never attach. I'm smart. I tried a lot of different types, but yeah, this was basically the fundamental thing which worked. Essentially, you have 2, so you've got the 2 rods, and it works. It works fairly nicely, right? So let's set this back down, just so nothing explodes. And this was where I spent a little bit more time. This is a better look at the actual crankshaft. This was where I changed it, right? So from this one, you can see it goes up, down, up, down. Each one of these are 90 degrees offset. That way, when a cycle happens, there's basically a piston in every single position, which is pretty cool. This was also where I started experimenting with different fundamentals of building. And this is where I hit my first/main problem, right? This was the piston I made, right? So this, how should we explain this the best? I changed the whole design of the crankshaft even more. I also fully designed a piston. So I guess one thing I should show here is, as you can see with these 2, it uses two blocks, right? So that way you would never have a central beam, right? So you can see this one is at this side, this one's at that side. Your center line is basically right in the middle between them. So you'd have like a wonky V8. It would be weird. So I designed the piston, which basically went piston goes down to angle, and then I redesigned the whole crankshaft to basically be one block bigger, and have this splitting rods and these 2. That way, the actual rods all line up. So as you can see, this one bends in, and this one bends in, and that means you've got 2 central type things, which mean your V8 is nicely centered. They also designed these so you know it's angled, and believe it or not, this thing does not explode, as far as I'm aware. But it's loud. It's a little bit, almost sounds explosive, but it's not. As you can see, if I just sit here for a second, you can see there's basically a piston in each bit. Really, really cool. Now this, like I said, this isn't how a V8 technically works, but this is how I found the best. And it's really cool, you see dun, 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 dun. And then these ones are slightly offset, so it's extend, 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 extend. So it's, yeah, it's basically having like 2 4-cylinders, but with like almost like second offset, which is pretty cool. And I haven't tried it really at full speed. This is more, like I said, this is all to get the fundamentals working. This isn't the actual engine I would use, but if I set it to 30, it works, but it's too clangy, right? So my main problem is, look at, like, you watch these, 1, look at the gap at the top. That is not smooth. 2, just look at them. They're shaking around like you don't know what. So I need to make a better housing. I need to make something which is much tighter and works a lot better. So if you have any ideas of what I could use for the interior of just what type of piston I can use and what kind of blocks I can surround it by to make it basically frictionless, please tell me, because that would mean a lot. I've tried so many different. You know what? Let's have a look. I'll show you the underneath bit here. Oh, well, that just broke. I broke my piston. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna turn this off before everything explodes. Oh, I've never had that. How on earth did that fall through? I'll just put it down. Yeah, I guess that shows the interior space. That's how I've got it working at the moment. So, obviously, I've been talking about what I can make for the interior space, and I have tried a couple of different things. The first thing I tried was use blast doors, but use the panels, because the panels technically add like a little bit more, but it's not enough. It's too small. It's too small a gap to use a half block, but too big a gap to use these panels. So it works better. It's smoother, but it's also not perfect. If I set this, like you can see the twitchiness, right? Why did it stop? Hello? Bugs. Oh, it's so shaky. What's happening? Also, if you have any ideas of what else I could use in these kind of points, because obviously you want something which has basically got 0 tolerance, right? So if you think about real life engines, they have sub-millimeters worth of tolerance to make things, you know, work. That's how things work at really high speeds. Obviously, you can't do that in this game, but you can get close to it. The closest I thought, and I had an amazing idea, right? So I was like, what if you, like, okay, I'll show you. Give me a sec. I need to place some small blocks, right? So, obviously, these specific blocks, if I can find them here, these blocks have always been in the game, right? So you can make a nice round circle out of them, yeah? And some people may already know what I'm getting at here. You can make a circle, right? If I make a different color. There you go. See? Nice circle, right? And you can use these window pieces, which act as the opposite side of the circle, right? My problem is, you would think, so if I put, right, why do I always lose? I need to sort this inventory thing, jeez. Right, if I place this like this, right, it's going to be amazing, it's going to be perfect tolerance. Now, because technically it's the exact same size, and so the little gap which you have around the window, that little space right there is the exact size which prevents it from fitting in the hole. Sad times. The only thing I've actually found which works recently, right? So I've been experimenting with a load of different things, like I said. Let's make this bigger. Is I tried if I made a hole, right, and I got a block like that, and I delete the block, it fits through the hole, but it's a little bit not perfect, right? If I delete that, it works, but it's not. I found that can be a bit clangy. I have found another option which is basically just as good, right? You get window pieces and you put them on the outside of a block like that. And I put some blocks in like that. And I delete... What is going on? There, delete them. That is a pretty... Wait, what? It's not. That's a pretty snug, tight fit, right? Believe it or not, this is actually a really, really high tolerance. And from what I can see is you don't tend to get any sparks. I don't know if I think glass pieces actually have zero friction to them. Like, I think the actual, like, glass blocks have, like, no friction. Which is what you want. Because obviously you want tolerance, but you also want lack of friction. So... We'll see. I think I'm onto something here. Maybe I'm not. It's worked in the past. See? It's not perfect. Maybe this won't work. That was a very tight tolerance, though. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to try it. How well does it work on large grid? Does large grid work better? Because that's something else I haven't really tried. Like I said at the start of this video, it's not a tutorial. This is just me experimenting. Oh, that is flipping good looking. Place these blocks. Okay, let's try a longer rod like this. Interesting how it gets stuck. Gets stuck perfectly halfway between. Interesting. I'll have to mess about more with that and see. But the last thing I also tried was I tried using wheels, right? So for what most people know is if you set a wheel to wheels connected to actual suspensions, you can set the friction, which means you can set the friction to 0, which means you can have a frictionless surface on the front face of each wheel. So I was like, let's make an entire thing out of wheels. The only problem is it's actually huge. But let's see how well this works, shall we? Let's set it to 10. And yeah, very, very interesting. Problem I did not expect. The piston head can phase through the wheel. which makes it worse than an actual block. Just, you know, stopping it. Now, I don't know what kind of physics engine stops this working, but there's something. So like I said, if you have any ideas of what I could use for a actual like holder for the actual piston heads, yeah, it would help out a lot. But very, very interesting. But yeah, I've got to fix one problem at a time. So for now, I need to fix this solution, because if I can get this to a very low friction, or frictionless, it means that this rod will be able to freely spin, right? So if there's absolutely no hiccups on the entire thing, it can just, it's basically like a frictionless thing spinning. Which means any force that you put on these will perfectly turn the actual rod, and that's going to help a lot in terms of making some kind of propulsion. But the video's already quite long, so I don't want to, you know, bore you any longer. That's what I've got up to at the moment, as well as some other things, but this was the main thing I've been working on. I just wanted to show you where I'm at with it. So yeah. Hopefully you did enjoy this video, and I hope you understand sort of my thought process through this whole sort of thing. This has basically turned almost into a mini-series because I plan on completing this goal and getting an engine which works. So stay tuned for more videos in the future, and yeah, let's hope that we actually get this engine working. Anyway, my name has been Quantum Chief, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!